Hello and welcome to Spirit Insight. Today we have JClay. JClay is a spiritual teacher and rap artist that makes music to heal even the most reluctant minds. His current album is I Am Nobody, I Am Someone, and it is definitely changing lives. Welcome, JClay. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. Yeah, I love everything you're about, the energy, I learned so much from you at the same time. So yeah, I'm excited.
I am just so grateful for our friendship. So I thank you for being here. I just wanted to start off, I know there's like usually this whole, when you look back, this whole pattern that created who you are today. Can you tell us a little bit about what led up to your spiritual transformation?
Yeah, it's so many things that I almost question, is it random or is it like just perfectly divine? But it's almost in a way too perfect to just be random. But it's so many things. So I grew up in a family, we always believed in the higher power. We always believed in God. I even felt like I've talked to God on a regular basis at a young age. I don't know where that came from, can't explain it at all. I don't know, but we weren't really a church-going family. We didn't. I experienced church through maybe some of my best friends during sleepovers on the weekend, and then we had to go to church in the morning, but wasn't a big church person. But again, I was always trying to be right, to the rules of the higher power. Like I don't want to be wrong. I was told about hell. I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven. And so you hear things and you try to navigate toward things. And so somewhere down the line, maybe in high school, I started realizing the contradictions in people. And I would say like the contradictions of what they say they believe, but versus how they're living. And you would want to point it out because you mean to be helpful and you're just inquisitive, but that can rub people the wrong way. And people don't like to be pointed out, that kind of stuff. But I've just noticed it, and I wanted to kind of know the rules for myself. So only place I knew where to start was the Bible. I had no idea where to start, so I started reading the Bible over and over again. But that wasn't until like college, after college, that I would just read it over and over again and just take different things. I would debate certain aspects with people, not in a bad way, but again, some of those people, they got rubbed the wrong way because they're thinking that I'm attacking their beliefs, but it's like, no, this says this, and we're supposed to do this, but not this. And it just started a bunch of things. And also simultaneously, I make music. I always made music. I've been drawn to it. Mainly rap and hip hop. I started off as a producer, and then I started making like silly, funny songs to make friends laugh. And then they were like, "Man, you should rap for real." And I started, got pretty good at it. And the two never really crossed paths, but the way it started to was a number of times, like maybe 5, maybe even 10 times, we almost made it big. Like I used to rap with the group, I had a record label. We almost made it big, but like at the last minute, something that seemed like divine intervention would just stop it all. And we were back to square one. I just couldn't understand why. I'm like, why? How did we get this close? And what do I need to change about myself? Are my thoughts wrong? Is my outlook wrong? Like it always sought me more and more within. So it's kind of like failure was the key for me to be successful at being myself. But at the time, but when it happened though, it was not, I didn't love it at all. It was nothing about it I loved. But afterwards, I appreciated it a lot because it's like, oh, that's why this. And now, and I started to learn to be more just aligned with, with the universe and stuff without even knowing it still. So somewhere down the lines, I started coming up with my own theories as to why the world is how it is and why people are. Something about me, I love understanding people's motives, but not from a bad way. Like there was a point where I used to love arguing both sides of a situation because I just want to show people like this person that you're mad at is not different than you. Like the same way you believe this, they believe that, but they're just following their belief like you are. So it's no reason to be mad. It's just something that just happens. And I got really passionate about that. So I started coming up with theories about why the world is how it is. I guess I'll share one theory, right? And I'll say how I was corrected later on in life as to what the truth is. So I was like, all right, if God is all good, God is all great, why is there evil? If there's evil here, then it must mean that like we're not just all made up of God. Maybe we're made up of God and the devil. Maybe it's like an equal portion of good energy and bad energy. And I was like, man, how great is God that he'll work with his mortal enemy to produce all of this what we call the physical and all of that. So for years, I went along with that. And I was thinking about how we're always disappointing one master. Like if we're doing all good, we're disappointing the devil. If we're doing all bad, we're disappointing God. And it was like there's always this conflict, this struggle. And then but it's still, I was still good. Like I didn't want to have any allegiance to bad. It was just something to overcome. It just is what it is. So along the lines, as a random occurrence, I'm watching a YouTube video, and the person I'm watching says, hey, these spiritual channels I follow, check them out. So I checked out one, and the lady was reading a passage from Jesus, My Autobiography. Now, again, I studied the Bible. I had my own perception of Jesus. I thought he was this cool, laid back guy. Like, hey, if you want to do this, just do it. Just don't get mad at the other person. So when I heard that, I was blind to the idea of channeling Jesus and things, but it sounded so real. It was so aligned with everything that I figured Jesus would be, like just this pure light that is good, but not judgmental. And it was like, wow, I got to get this book to just see. So I read it as both a skeptic and as someone that wanted to believe. The belief side came over. And in the book, he said, this is why I wrote A Course in Miracles. And so I'm like, well, what's A Course in Miracles? I looked it up. It was a different writer, different publisher. It had nothing to do with this book, but it was also channeled by Jesus. So I'm like, this is real. This changes everything. So got the book. It corrected so many of my misperceptions. One, I saw how it's not that there's good and evil. There's or God. There's more so God and not God. And when people start to make not God a thing, they give it a name and then they act like it's real by naming it and defining it. But it's not so much that, it's just the opposite of everything that God is. And we're making it a real thing, even though it's just all illusion, so to speak. And like A Course in Miracles helped me mend that gap. So I was already here, but it was like a missing piece, dead set in the middle. And once that got filled in, it just kind of connected everything in my life. I knew I couldn't make the same kind of music that I was making because some of my music glorified the ego, as in like, yeah, I'm better than you are. I'm the greatest. It was still self-affirming, but it wasn't affirming the others as well. It was like I was separate and different and better than everyone else. And that can even, believe it or not, like that can cause a lot of strife for people too, because then they feel alone because they're not tolerant of other people, because they've separated themselves from it. And like all my eyes were just open to all of this, and it still is. I mean, it's so much that's coming into awareness by just kind of lining up with all of that. So anyway, where am I at in the story? So yeah, I knew I couldn't make the same type of music, but I knew that this information could help people, like how I understood it, how I saw the world. I started helping my friends. Like friends would come to me for advice. They love to, just because I would never judge them. They would come to me with some crazy things, but because that's just how I am. It's like, oh, I can see how they got there, and so yeah. So I wanted to share this information, but I felt like I didn't have any foundation to stand on, because part of me was still believing in the ego story, believing in history, believe that you needed credentials to do things and all of that. Even though all of what I've always wanted was, I don't care about credentials. I just care about now. Like, this is what you say you can do, let's do it. But I was still I had that inner conflict. And so I just started where I was. I started making a couple of songs to see if I could maybe teach this in a way that wasn't corny, but also wasn't overly preachy. Because I've heard some songs like that, and it's like you're trying to help people, but you're yelling at them, And so I wanted to see if I can find that balance. I was able to. I tested some of the songs out. People loved it, and then it just kind of took on a life of its own. So I say I'm a rap artist, but it's more so like a teacher of of peace, or just really how to be okay with yourself and the world, no matter the circumstances, no matter where you see yourself. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does, very much so. Yeah, and I just had a giggle. So pardon me when you said what they're preaching, because your music is so transformative, and I'm saying this from someone that that's not my first genre of music. Either my husband, and we've had this private conversation of how much I let go, changed my husband, and he had spirit. It literally triggered some spiritual experiences for him listening to your music, and I just want to put that out there because people may not believe it until you've experienced it. It's very transformative, and I think that energy flows through you. And I just wanted to say, because I do read energy. To me, you have a very high vibration, almost like someone who's had like a kundalini or a spiritual awakening, or one of those transformative events. Was there any major event with you that you felt really triggered or like felt transforming to you?
Yes, there were two, but again, it's one of those, I'll explain it, but it's one of those where I don't know if it's just seemed that way or if it really happened, or, so the first was, I joke about it sometimes, but I was depressed one time in my life for 5 minutes. And it was the longest 5 minutes I ever experienced it. I hated it. It was terrible. It was like, I want to say maybe in 2015, something happened again with music where it didn't go right. I was in so much debt from, just going all in on it. Like, yeah, this is going to work. And then didn't work. Things were just shaky all over my relationships and things. I don't know, I was just in a sad, dark place. And I was still working a day job too. And I didn't, even though it was a good job on paper, it just wasn't my passion. So I hated that I had to go that, and I felt trapped because then I spent all this money, I have to go there. And I was just real sad. But in the midst of me being sad, it was like, what's wrong with you? You're better than this. Okay, what's the problem? So I'm talking to myself, okay, well, the problem is money. All right, learn all you can about money. Stop just going at it. So I became an expert on all things financial. Like I read every personal finance book, everything I could find for the next 2 years. I was able to get out of debt, was able to pay off student loans and all of that, and set the foundation for me to quit so that I could, work on what I'm working on now. But it was very transformative because I realized that you don't have to stay in that place if you don't want to. And then, but the second one, which is the much, much bigger transformative one, was it was in the midst of me reading the Course in Miracles. This was 2018. So I'm learning it, I'm taking it in, I'm believing it, I'm practicing it. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I died. And for the entire week, I felt like I was grieving myself because I realized how much of my past, not even past, my past grievances or woes that I brought into the forefront that I carried with me that I was proud of. But at the same time, I knew I didn't really value these things. That's not what I wanted. I want peace. I want joy. I want happiness. I don't want conflict. I don't want struggle. But the parts that I struggled, I really wore that like a badge of honor. Like, yeah, I've been through this. This is the type of person I am. You don't know my life. You don't know what I've been through. I had all that. And I realized that was meaningless. It was valueless on the grand scheme of things. And it was who I thought I was. And when I realized that it wasn't who I was, it wasn't even close, I let it go, but it felt like a real death. And I didn't have anybody to talk to this about, but I couldn't because I didn't know how to verbalize it at the time. I just knew that, I don't know, I knew it would pass. Somehow I knew that this feeling would pass. And it lasted about a week. I was just sad. But after that, it was it was like the same world, but it was a new color. It was brighter lights, brighter everything. And I've heard descriptions of being enlightened and seeing pure bliss and things. I can't say that was that because I feel like maybe that's another level. But from where I was, it was definitely that. Everything was just brighter. Sounded different. It was like everybody was smiling at me all the time. It's just different. And this is kind of where I am now in this space. I'm still finding little crevices of fears and beliefs that I've been holding on to that I need to let go of. but yeah, but it's much freer now, and that was one of those transformative points.
Yeah, because it I feel like when you follow your music, you follow your journey. Like each new like understanding you have seems to flow through your music. Which one of your songs would you say represents like who you are most right now in the moment?
Ooh, who I am now. And it changed. So it really changes from week to week, day to day. It might even be some that I'm writing now or that I just finished recording, but it's hard to say. So like, okay, since you brought up Let Go, that's kind of that space I was in 2018. That's that let go space, like definitely. But it's even helped me even past that. And you would ask like, how can a song that you wrote help you? I have no idea, which means I'm probably channeling it or something and don't know it. But it like I hear it when I need to, and I don't hear it as me trying to check for the technical things and did I mix this right? Did I do that? No, I hear it like it's supposed to be heard, and it's like, wow, I am doing this right now. Let me stop. Let me fix this. Let me fix that. It's been so many songs like Take It Higher. I speak about how like death can exist, and I try to break down exactly for that because I know some people believe in it. And I guess where I am now, I probably don't have a song to it yet, but it's seeing how reality is just really is within, and the outside, it only reflects that within. And even if it doesn't reflect it how you think it should, it doesn't matter. As long as you're holding that reality. And I love the challenge of trying to figure out how to break it down where anyone can understand it. Because it takes time sometimes, but then I get better at it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm ready to put this into a song.
Yeah, and being in that state of flow, you know, your spiritual transformative event seems very much like what I call a mini death. It's where you're letting go of like parts of the ego and different things that just no longer serve you.
Yeah.
That's very, very beautiful. And I think, you know, with your music, and you tell me if I'm on the cue here, but I find that, you know, I flow more with the energy and the emotion, and the words are just like a cue, like, you know, you just kind of follow it. You know how like when, you know, they do those sing-alongs and they put the words and they're like in the dots, you know, but it's kind of like you follow it like this whole flow of energy and music, just like, you know, a spiritual what they call like a conduit, you know, like you, it just came through you like that. um which one do you feel of your songs that kind of, you know how I know when I get like, I don't like the term download, but you know, all of a sudden I'll be like, what did I just say? What did I just do? Which one of your songs would you say was like that? Like all of a sudden you're done with it and you're like, where did that all come from?
Yeah. One that comes to mind maybe is Leave Earth. Uh Leave Earth is from my perspective, it's about saying, you know what, I've been here, it was cool. It's time to it's time to move on, like to ascend in a sense. But here's the key, and I think I mentioned it in this song, or maybe I mentioned it in another, but like Earth comes with you. So it's not like you're leaving Earth. It's like it's just your Earth is ascending as well as you ascend. And so you're still on Earth, but you're not anymore. And it was that. But what's even funnier is there's a song I just recorded that might be my next single. It's called "I Am Not Going to Mars," and it's about that, because you know, like a lot of people, they want to pack up and leave. They're like, man, I'm done with this. I'm done with all these people. I want to just go somewhere else. And even, you know, even you hear about the exploration to Mars now. People are thinking about, yeah, I'm done with Earth, but it's more so like, nah, Earth, like we're made for Earth. We are one with it. It is one with us. Not to say nothing bad about Mars, but it's like, no, I'm not going to Mars. I'm staying on this high vibrational planet that we're already on. It's loving and great and everything. So it's, yeah, it's a lot of different levels to that too, but it's hard to go into details with it. Yeah.
No, and details are good, but I find like with a lot of that, it's like they don't get that that emotional who you are and that ego, all that luggage comes with you to Mars. It doesn't
Exactly.
change. You can change planets everywhere, but that luggage is coming with you because you don't want to leave your favorite things behind, which make you up. So you're still going to be creating the same type of platform on Mars or Jupiter or wherever you go in the space and galaxy. Because that I find from death experiences and other things, your personality, it's a little different, but there's these core things that make you up and they don't change no matter the platform.
Right. And even similar to that, like I never like leave friends or ex-friends or whoever. Like, I mean, I've had some that have left me, like they might have saw that I did something wrong, which I might not agree with, but like, I'm not a person that would cut somebody off. If we just drift apart, we just drift apart and it's not a big deal. But I know that when you cut it off, it's like you're cutting off a part of yourself. You're missing a chance to grow. It's like you're cutting off your arm almost. And it's like, who wants to live without an arm? I mean, I know people do, but I'm saying like, once you've been using it, it's very convenient.
Yeah. And do you find, like, I think how I relate it is everyone's a mirror. So if you shatter that mirror, there's nothing for you to grow from.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have a song called I Can't Do This Without You. And it speaks about the 5 fingers. Like one finger, let's say this finger thought, hey, I want to be the richest finger. This one, I want to be the strongest. This finger loves this finger, but this finger loves this. So it's like they're all in conflict doing like this. Somebody else is looking at you. They're like, what's wrong with this person? Like there's something wrong with them. They can't keep their hand straight. But once they all work together and realize that they're a hand of their higher self, of their higher mind, they can experience things together that they never could have separate. Like they can hold hands, they can high five, they can hold a baseball bat, they can do all these things, but if they are just by themselves, they know nothing of this world. And we're similar in that, like once we realize that we are all part of God, we are all part of that higher consciousness, we can experience things that is just impossible to experience being alone and cut off and by ourselves.
Right. And even that symbioticness with the earth and with spirit in the human body. We're always trying to leave earth or leave our body, and we're meant to be these like multidimensional beings. So the more we fight that's that whole lack mentality, and we're not creating that whole symbiosis for an experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was funny because I was in the Course in Miracles meeting yesterday, and like they talk about the illusion versus the truth. And some people still see this world as the illusion, but like you were just saying, like, no, it's both the truth and illusion, depending on how you're choosing to see it and how you're choosing to interact with it. And that's the thing, like this is very real truth, but you have to be willing to see it and forego all of the illusions, because there's never a there, there's always a here. There's never a later, there's always a now. And we have to remember that.
Yeah, that and I think we've talked about this before with, being in the flow of now, where all creation happens, so nothing is impossible. I always say, like, in the sense of, the minute you try to manifest something and you have this big dream and you're putting all of these things, like, I want this house in Malibu with this, and this, you're cutting off all these potentialities in life, because, spirit has to be able to move, and there's thousands of potentialities to bring you a nice house, a nice car, whatever it is, and so I'm just curious for you, because I know you're like a manifesting fool. How do you see that playing out for you? Like, what's your go-to when you're trying to create?
Yeah, so it takes on many forms. Okay, I'll start here. So similar to that, I had a friend who, like, she would contact me to pray for her when she needs things, and she was like, pray for me. I want to get this house. I've been loving this house, this particular house. I want it. And I said, I'll pray for you, but I'm gonna pray that you get this house or better. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, you don't want to, like, what if there's a better house for you? What if this is not meant to be? She's like, okay. So she didn't get the house she wanted, but maybe like a month later, something happened and she got a better house that she lives in now. She loves it. That's her go-to prayer now. Like, she says, this or better is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But so for me though, it's a little different. And I'm coming on the other side of this now, but I was teeter-tottering, or I was stuck where it's kind of like to ask for something, it's like you believe you lack it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're not trusting that you're going to get what you need anyway. So you're creating that separation from you and what you want. So yeah. So it's a trick. It's almost like, wait, do I not ask? Do I ask? I know what I want, but I know what I don't want too. And I would kind of go back and forth on just different tangents of that. And I guess where I am now, coming on the other side of it, is just really true acceptance. I know what's in my heart. I know what I want to experience, but it's more the feeling of it all that I want to experience. So like, and I hate to say this because I wouldn't want this to happen, but let's say like a house that I was staying in, it got taken from me or destroyed. I wouldn't see that as a bad thing, because maybe that needed to happen to get me to a bigger house, or just to move and go somewhere else, like to be more in the space that I already know that I am. So it's not even much about the physical, even though I love certain things of the physical, it's great, but it's kind of more so just accepting and acknowledging, like, yes, ooh, that would be great to try, but I'm not focused on, I have to do this way. I have to get this. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to stop nonstop. Like I'm not there anymore.
That's awesome. Yeah. I talk a lot about that, that lack mentality. It's like the victim mentality too, like if you keep reinforcing that same energy without realizing it. Because even I forget if it was the Dalai Lama, someone I remember seeing once is like, all you need is abundance. You don't need to spell it out. You don't need everything, But to me, it's more, being in that state of flow. When you're in the state of flow and joy and seeing the world through abundance, it just flows to you when you have that trust. And I had a laugh, my friend Lizbeth always taught me this or something better. So that's interesting that like so many people are realizing that, and but my thing with it all is, that trust of that flow. Even like you said with the house, my old house, a bunch of things happened to it and I lost it, but I wouldn't be here or had all the major spiritual transformations if it hadn't moved me like 3 states away. Yeah.
Exactly.
And yes.
Okay, sorry.
So just, no, I'm just saying, just trusting that. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think everything is kind of a perception. Like if you notice, the more you switch your perception of events like that like all these opportunities awaken for you. Have you had that experience?
Yes, so much. Like, I mean, even this opportunity, there was a time like when I first started the music and I was trying to come up with a plan, like, okay, well, this is how I'm going to get it out. I need to go on podcasts. I need to tell my story. And I had made a list of a bunch of podcasts to try to reach out to and things, but it just didn't bring me joy. Like nothing about that. It sounded like work. And I actually love work, but when it's something I want to do, you know what I mean? Like I would be the hardest working person if it's what I'm aligned with, and that I wasn't. And it's like I'm getting more podcasts, I'm getting more people that are willing to help me, but I'm not trying at all. I'm simply going going from joyful thing to the next joyful thing to the next joyful thing, and it's amazing to see. It's like, wow. And each one plays off of each other. Like you think it has nothing to do with the next thing. Like what? Okay, I'll say this. I do like programming and coding on the side. I have clients that I do things with. I also do narrations for like certain YouTube channels, and they're all kind of playing off of each other in strange ways. And it's like, oh, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to do this or got that skill. And yeah, it's cool.
I've found that in my own stuff. I started, editing videos and all this other stuff because Spirit wanted me to do a podcast back in 2019, right? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do all this stuff. I don't want to be putting myself out there, all this stuff, right? And look at where we are now, right? But it took a lot of prodding and a lot more STEs to get me here.
But are you experiencing the same thing where like people are just helping and everything? And
yes, and it's really wild in the sense that like, people ask me to do it. Like, when are you going to do that? When are you going to start putting classes on your YouTube channel? When are you going to start interviewing people? Because you have such an understanding of it. Why aren't you? And here I am, because they're like, please put me on your channel. I'm like, what channel? So yeah, I totally understand that, So it's interesting when you can look back and just see that whole pattern of what brought you here, and all the skills you picked up, and who lit your light the whole way through. It's very beautiful. Who would you say, like, it can be anyone or whatever, because I was going to ask you this. I keep getting called to ask you, like, if there was a few spiritual people or practices or things that you follow, who would you say has kind of made your mind just expand, or what experiences with these people?
Yeah, so one definitely seems cliche, but Jesus, because I mean he was the creator of A Course in Miracles. Even his profound effect on the world, as outlined in the Bible. Whether again that might not even be true, but it's just the idea of Jesus, like it, and saying that we are capable of it too, or we're even capable of greater things than he. Like even saying that and having that idea has changed so much in my life. And really just being the practice of being mindful of, not even mindful, but just aware of what's going on in my mind, like what I'm focusing on. Because as you said, like abundance, like we want to be in abundance, but also even when we're thinking negatively, we're in abundance, but on a way we don't want. And so it's like, but that even further proves we are abundant beings. Like it reaffirms it. So it's like, oh, let me make sure that I'm following this. Also recently, and you may know this too from our conversations, Bashar. But Bashar on YouTube, he popped up through a side video I was watching, and they mentioned Bashar. And I was like, well, let me look up who this Bashar guy is. Started listening, and it's been great. And for those that don't know, Bashar is said to be he's being channeled through a guy named Daryl Anka, and he's said to be like a future from the future, I think, almost like a hybrid species on another planet, but the DNA is still mixed, like it's a hybrid race. And it explained about us being hybrid races too. It's a lot of things I don't understand, but what I do understand is I resonate heavily with his message. So to me, all the other things are just details. And that's one of the things I mean about like, it's like details never mattered about me. Like even with shedding my past, I like the idea of being able to just go in with nothing to stand on. Like before, that was like one of my biggest fears, but now I love it. I love seeing things unfold about even who people think I am and what I'm capable of, because I might not give them any basis to go off of the past. They just have to take things now. But at the same time, I'm very accepting of people now because nothing else matters. So I say that to say, like, if somebody's watching this and they might not align with the idea of channeling, they might not align with the idea of future races, hybrid races, like just listen to the message. Is the message resonating with you? Are you being inspired by it? Is it uplifting you to do greater things, to do what your passions are? And that's all that really matters.
Yeah, and I always say that, as long as the message is unconditional love, who does it harm?
Exactly.
If it expands you, because I know some of these spiritual experiences, even near-death experiences, or just the transformations, are really hard for someone who hasn't maybe experienced it to understand or accept, much less, like you said, the channeling and various things, like my 2019 connection to oneness is when Jesus, I call him Yeshua, started telling me all these things and where he's at now. And, like basically I've expanded beyond what some people know of me and all of those things. And I'm just in here, I was raised classic Catholic, and I'm going, what? It's not that. What? Don't call you what? Don't worship what? And my whole family's like, what's going on with you? And then I had this whole experience outside, and I came back in, my daughter's like, you're not my mom, your energy shifted. And that was like that mini death, like you were saying. So yeah. I think that's kind of like how that energy comes to you, because I definitely feel you have that connection, and it definitely through your music as well. And I just find that interesting that you had such a connection, and that you hold such a connection to him, and that willingness to be the brothers and sisters, that he talked about, and seeing everyone as that.
I do have a question for you. Like when you said you had like the mini death, was it almost like, how do I say this? I don't want to say fearful, but was it that you knew you were always supposed to ascend to where you were supposed to, but you thought it might like make your life boring before, or like people might not like you. I don't know, like just all these other thoughts, like I can't ascend because if I do that, then this, but then you find that none of that is true anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when you embody that, that Christ consciousness, it does trigger people. It either triggers them, like you're the mirror. Like I find spirit constantly moves me through people's lives being the mirror. And, sometimes they end up hating you. Sometimes they end up loving you. Usually they come back around to love, but, and you can't control it. You're just guided to wherever anyone needs you when you're in that flow of consciousness. And I think that was the hardest part about it. Like, because they showed me everything and, and how the earth was created and, from a thought form to how it was and to how I was creating my life and more strife and more struggle. And that each person, I was pulling them energetically into being these different things, and therefore creating part of their suffering because I wasn't in that state of flow. I wasn't in the state of love. I mean, I thought I was, but I wasn't doing what I set out and why I came back here for. So it was kind of a kick in the pants. And I was like, that whole experience, I was just like ugly crying, going, please forgive me. Human me is the ditz. I forgot. It was terrible. Yeah. But I walked away changed. Like I said, even my daughter, I walked in because she, she's had her own experiences and she was just like, but I understood that like I let go of a lot of that ego, a lot of that trauma. And I embodied what I call like a higher aspect of myself. Did you find that within yours? Like you just felt transformed, I guess, like you just, this whole switch.
Yeah, it was like, it's kind of like how you're in the room and then the AC goes off and then it's very peaceful and quiet, but you didn't know the AC was on. It's kind of like that, like with fear. Like I didn't realize that fear was there, but then it was just gone and it was very peaceful. And so like, and even applying my teachings from A Course in Miracles, it says, call on the Holy Spirit and, you'll have answers. So when I first released Let Go, people were coming to me, asking me deep questions, telling me like their deepest pains and things. And when I was younger, I would shy away from those conversations because I wanted to just remain happy. I didn't care about any of those things. But like now I was able to rely on that and call on the Holy Spirit and be able to give them answers that even myself, if I was to judge that answer, I would say, oh, they're going to hate me for life. They're never going to listen to another song or whatever. But I would feel like it was the truth and that it was meant for me to say, and it would turn out for the best. Like, they were like, oh, thank you. I needed that. You have no idea what your words done for me. And it is not even my words. I'm like you said, I'm in the flow, just passing it along. And yeah.
Because that authenticity, I think, is very important. Spirit told me, speak less, talk more. And they said, and I'm like, and when asked what that was, this is my quantum hypnosis. They're like, stop filtering for your audience, because you don't want that instant rejector, like they'll shut you off and not hear the rest of the message. So, but they told me, just, speak what flows. And I think that's so important when you're in that, and I just feel like your music does that. It just speaks, and just flows. It gets to the core. It's not all these fluffy la la la. It's just like, hey, listen up, but not in a hey, I'm gonna slap you side the face kind of way. I call that a spirit slap when I get those. But it's kind of like, even though it's like this energetic force, it doesn't feel like it's forceful. Yeah. It's very beautiful in the sense that like you just feel it at your core. I know you sang it for us during an event and like everybody was just like, so like, I've never seen so many people in the flow of feeling the energy behind a song before. And I just, when you go to write those and put those together, I am just curious how, that flows through you. Do you get the melodies first, or is it a combination, or how does it come to you?
Yeah, it depends. So like, there's still a part of me, I guess you can say it's ego, but not negative ego. It's using it as like, I know I can rap. I know I'm good. So one thing is I'm going to let people know that I have this skill, that it's not just like random, you know what I mean? Like I actually do this, so to speak. But so there's that. And so I want to present it in such a way that I appease those who just love the art form. But then I also want to give the message for those that are willing to listen. But I also want to give the, what do you call it? Just the aesthetic of the music, where if you, like you said, if you don't listen to any word, you just feel better just listening to it. Because I mean, the best songs, we don't even know the words anyway. Like we mess up on parts. It's all about the melody. So yeah, so it's like I want to make sure it comes from all of those levels. And obviously some songs are deeper than others and some are more subtle, but it still has that underlying theme. So it just depends on the type of song and the type of energy it requires. For Let Go, for example, I knew that this song is going to be a very in your face, like it's almost like I'm blaming you, but it was like, okay, how do I do this where I'm not, where I don't want to say I'm blaming you. It's like this world is your doing, but at the same time it's your doing, so you can do something about it. And I knew the first lines were important, like why you holding on, you don't need this, they just feeding BS super strong, you don't eat this or eat that. Like I knew that it was my way to get them on my side. Like they see that I understand what you're going through, I'm on your side, and now I'm going for it. Like now that you let down your defenses, I can go in and help you see how you may have misjudged the situation and miscreated, so that you can create from love instead of fear and doubt.
Yeah, and you really see that with the flow of your music. And I thought it was really interesting, it's that accountability and responsibility. Like, hey, you don't like this? Well, guess what you're doing? So it's really awesome. But I wanted to speak to you because I think you get this, they've always told me you have to have a certain level of spiritual confidence to do the work we do. So, that's where using the ego, people try to put so much negative on ego. Ego doesn't have to be negative. It's your perception and how you use it. I mean, how do you feel it works for you? Like, how do you make it work for you?
Yeah, it works in so many ways. Because one, like I said, I like getting people to see the other side. So I love when someone challenges something I say, like even speaking from truth, that I feel that there's no way you can misconstrue truth. But I love when somebody challenges it, because it allows me to go deeper in it and just reaffirm my belief even more, and show ways to just become a better teacher of this, which means I become a better learner of this, and it transforms my world. So that ego is there, like, yeah, there's nothing you can say that can deter me from this, because I know this is the truth. This is the truth, whether I say it's the truth or not. Whereas illusions, if I don't say an illusion is the truth, then it won't be the truth, and that's how I differentiate it. And so I love having that ego there. But not only that, an ego as far as the no fear, like ego is built of fear, but in a sense, I have that confidence because I understand these concepts of oh, this is fearful. Let's jump right in. Let's do it. Because my ego won't let me not do it now that I think it's fearful, and I know the relationship fear has to unlocking the truth. So it's I use it in many wonderful, beautiful ways now.
And I have to. You made me remembering that my near-death experience was 7 years old, but I remember as a child, and I kind of lost it for a while, like anything that I was afraid of, I'd make myself do. Like I climbed the 100-foot silo and the 100-something foot windmill on our property, just to be like, I don't want to be afraid. So if I do it, I'm no longer afraid. That's one thing off my list. Do you find life, that's how it should challenge you the most?
Yeah, because I mean, it does. Like I always say, there's a difference between fear and a bad feeling. Like a bad feeling, don't do it. Don't go down that path. But if it's just fear, do it. It's more excitement. It's saying, oh, I never considered this before. Let me try it. And like you said, like I wasn't like that. I was a fraidy cat as a kid. Well, in the middle of that. But I do remember, like even before I was a fraidy cat, I did have confidence, but I don't know where that came from. Maybe that's just the original spiritual confidence that came. Like my dad told me a story recently about when I was 2 years old. I was 2 years old, and we lived on a street where it was a small side street, but then on the corner, there was a big street, like with railroad tracks in the middle. I grew up in Chicago, and it was just a busy street. And so my dad said I was always a mindful child. You know, he'll tell me to do something, I'll do it. You know, I listened. But he said one day I was walking toward the big street because he just, you know, he would just let me just be there, be free. And he said, Jelani. And I just kept walking, and I'm getting closer and closer to the street. He's like, Jelani. And I'm still going. And then like, I think he started to break toward running toward me. But I guess in his mind, he's thinking he can't do too much because he doesn't want me to keep going. So he said at the last second, I stopped at the street, and then I looked over and had a smirk. I looked behind with a smirk on my face, and then the car flew by. And he said after that, like he wouldn't, he said he wouldn't let me just roam free anymore after that because he knew my mom would be mad. But in my mind, like, just because I know how I am, it was me not challenging, but showing him, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. Like I know there's a street right there. I know I'm not supposed to cross it. I'm just having fun with you right now, just to play these mind games to get you to let go of this fear. Like it's all good fun. So that was just a funny experience. And I just remember all the things I've jumped off of as a kid with no fear, and nothing happened. No pain, no injuries, none of that. Yeah.
And I think, you know, the creation of certain fears, you know, I've learned that, you know, and I say that with people with children, you know, if you don't teach them to be afraid of things and they don't see you afraid of things, they don't learn that level of fear. They also don't create the action that could get them harmed. Do you ever notice that? I mean, it's so weird. Like, I remember as a kid, my brother had no fear. And some of those things, he shouldn't be here anymore. Okay, let's just put it that way. He was like Evel Knievel, you know. But if you don't have that idea that it can harm you, you don't create it. And I guess, you know, that's always the biggest catch-22 about how the truth or the laws of earth kind of work. And I always find that really interesting on like, how do you find that balance?
Yeah. So like it's really just looking at truth. And I use this example. When COVID happened, a lot of people, you know, were afraid. They had the mask and things. I wasn't, because I'm like this imaginary disease. I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm just saying in my mind, like you can't see it, it's not tangible. And I was saying, well, if a disease or illness can be contagious, why can't the cure be contagious? And I would say that I am the contagious cure. And everyone I was around, nobody got COVID. Like I was still, me and the group of people were still playing basketball on a regular basis. Like I was in close proximity with these people, and nobody got COVID. And I'm not to say that I wasn't lucky or whatever, but I really believe it was that internal being reflected on the external. Like if you don't believe that that's possible, it won't be possible. And even if, and let's say some kind of way it still happens, it's not what it seems. It's another way to show you to expand and accept more of yourself.
I got a lot of information about that even before it hit, and I was like, okay, well, here we go. But you know what? I think I had a lot of pre-birth communication from my son. And it was interesting because once he was born in 2001, like I didn't watch news. I never was one to watch news, honestly. But I mean, I don't feed my mind anything I'm not willing to create. Yeah. I mean, there's an understanding in the universe, and there are people who have that understanding that, you know, things are created as you think, as you see, simultaneously, because we talk about we're really in that now space. So things are simultaneous, you know. So I think, you know, that is one of the main things I try to take away with my mind. Like if it's not something loving and not something I want to create, I don't feed my energy there. It's not toxic positivity in the sense that I don't know there's these things going on in the world. I send them love, but I don't attach to it. When you attach to it, you're helping create it. Does that make sense to you? I mean, yeah. I'm curious.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So so one thing that's helped me like with that is, so I'm sure by now many people have heard of Abraham Hicks. It's like a collective that flows through, I can't think of her name right now, Esther Hicks. And Abraham Hicks is always talking about like the vibrational match, you know, be positive, feel positive, think that, and, you know, all will be well. And I, you know, sometimes you try it, but then you might have so much belief in the opposite that if you say an affirmation, every time you say the affirmation, it triggers you to think the opposite, like, oh, yes, that can never be true. So you don't really go anywhere. And then there's Bashar, like what I was talking about before. He's talking about always follow your joy in every moment, no matter what it is. If I'm twirling this thing on my fingers, if this brings me joy right now, just do it. Just don't even think about that. And so what I found the correlation between the two is, let's say you think a bad thought, you daydream, you catch yourself like, oh man, I don't want to daydream this. I should think the opposite. But don't think the opposite, because sometimes you create that loop where it triggers you. Just do the next joyful thing, because when
Yes.
when you're in that joy, all the other stuff just falls away on its own anyway. So it doesn't matter. You're just in a state of joyfulness. And the longer you stay in that, the more momentum of joy you get, and things just start working out in your favor. But you don't even care at that point, because you're just so much in whatever joy you're in.
That state of bliss. And that was a big after death communication with my mother, was finding joy. Like for me, it was dancing. She's like, yeah, start dancing again. But those moments of joy, you are in that now moment. You're not creating, you're not thinking of anything if you're in that ecstatic joy. If you think about it, you're not creating anything but more joy. And that's being in the state of flow.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's so simple. It's like, why didn't I think of that? Just do what makes you happy.
And people are always like, why do you laugh so much? Why do you smile? And I don't attach to like very many things. I love everyone, and that's just kind of the state of flow that I try to sit in. But what do you find brings you the most joy?
It changes, and that's that's what I'm learning from all of this. Like, something that brought me so much joy, it just might change at the snap of a finger, and then I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm it's not that I don't want anything to do with it. I've just shifted somewhere else, but then it'll come back to it. So obviously, of course, music. I love doing music. I love having these conversations. I love getting people to see the other side, or understand their own behavior as to how it's leading them to experience what they're experiencing. I love, just having fun, just being free, no rules, no limits, no restrictions. And even with this understanding, I'm not always there, but I'm getting closer, and I can appreciate the moments that I am there. And it's like I use that as the reminder, like, okay, this is achievable. Just keep it. Just hold this awareness of just free. Just a free spirit. The idea that comes to mind is be like a leaf gently flowing through the wind. Like, it might be time to just stick to a rock for a little bit, but then when it's time to go, just be free and just go with it.
Yeah, and see where the wind takes you, right?
Yeah.
And I was gonna say it's rather interesting of that kind of thing. I always say, the only cage there is of your own making. It's the limited thought forms, that we create this cage where we feel trapped. And that's why so many people are like, I want to ascend this. And it's like, you're already this multidimensional being. It's just your perception of how much you're attaching to everything that flows through your experience. And I think, like you said, I always talk about the mindfulness. But as far as that, that joy, like, do you feel like once you don't enjoy it, like, a lot of people say this, and so I'm just curious with you, like, if it doesn't bring me joy, then I know, it's time to make the next step. Like, when it stops bringing me joy, I'm not going to do it anymore, because that I'm not being that conduit, right? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's more reverse. Like, if it's not bringing me joy, how can I make it joyful? And then I would decide to leave that alone from there. Like, I no longer make the decision from the point of it's no longer joyful, but it's just something that's just more joyful. And an example again would be like when I had my day job. I used to work at NASA, and I worked there for 14 years, but I never planned on being there that long, like, because I was always doing music. I was like, yeah, I'll be here for a year, use some of this money to fund this. But then, stuff just kept happening. And I always dreaded it every day. I did not want to go. I was not enthused to go. But the final year, and it was when I was learning the Course in Miracles, having this spiritual awakening, I said, you know what? I am going to make the most of this. I'm here. It is what it is. I'm here. I'm going to be the best worker I can be. I started helping out the younger people coming in. I started taking on more projects, so going above and beyond, being happy, being cheerful, doing it. And it just so happens that that's when the stars aligned and I was able to finally quit the thing that I always wanted, and it came after I was joyful. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And so it's, if we can remember, find the joy in every situation, like even every perceived limit is there for a reason. Like it's there to get you to see that you can overcome it. So don't like just run away from it, be joyful in it, and then make your decision from there.
You know, that reminded me of something, if you don't mind me sharing just a little story. And I know I told you the full story, but I had lost $20 that I got returned to me after helping pay somebody's groceries, right? And I was like, God, why would I lose this, you know, just because of all this? And you know, and then I'm like, you know what? I remember how I was down to my last buck and found a 20 and how that made me feel, and that joy. I'm like, I'm okay if somebody out there must need it more than me. And as soon as I said that, literally it wasn't there before, and then it was laying right under the truck next to us during this huge monsoon windy storm. And I'm like, okay. So the minute I let go of that and found like a joy in that situation, it was there. And I just wanted to reiterate how important that is, you know? And I know this is a little switch gears, but I know you're a co-founder of Every Child Wins. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that? What that's about?
Yeah. So Every Child Wins is a music company for kids to help them learn the basics, like the alphabet, numbers, any complex subjects. So like if you put it into music, okay, let me backtrack. This actually goes well into the story of what I do now.
Okay.
So back when I was working my day job, I'm always looking for a way out. Like I don't want to be here. How can I make money? Whatever. The other co-founder, which is my best friend, we do a podcast together ourselves, and he had a child, and he was looking for educational things to give to his child, and he was like, well, I find them that where it's educational but it's not good, or it's good but it's not educational. And as he's saying this, I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. Let's just do it, And we started making this music. It won awards. We performed for nonprofits like the Dallas Zoo. Well, it's not a nonprofit, but like United Way, just different things. And parents really said how much it worked, how much their kids got a lot out of it. And the idea is the same, where you might not remember what you ate for breakfast 2 days ago, but that melody from a song you heard when you were 6 years old, you remember like that. And like, it just shows the power of music. So from doing that, I got into the practice of teaching certain subjects in a simple way, where people can understand it, because kids can understand it, anybody can understand it. So that kind of transformed into when I started doing the what I'm doing now, like with the spiritual teachings and everything. And even though we're still doing Every Child Wins, I'm doing more the thing for adults, because at the same time, I don't want to say there's a limit, but there's so much stuff for kids. Everybody loves kids. So many people help kids, but not many people care about adults. They're like, oh, they're beyond being helped. You can't help them. It's over. They just need to die and start over. And I'm like, nah, if we can get these adults, we can help more kids. We can help more everybody, and it can be a better place. So that's where that is to that. But we're still doing Every Child Wins, though. Like we still have songs in the works, some ready to be released to just teach different complex subjects to kids, or simple subjects. Yeah. So
you put the subjects to music, like the content to music kind of thing?
Yeah, like there's a song called Colors, where it teaches colors. It names all the objects in colors, but it also has a deeper meaning, like everything is not black and white. I'm gonna introduce you to some colors. I'm gonna introduce, like it right. We sneak themes in there to have a higher message, but it's still simple too, like just counting and spelling, multiplication, things like that.
That's amazing. And I love what you said about adults. A lot of the work I do is the inner child work. People, you hear that the inner child is still in that now moment. So that work's very important. And I feel like maybe that's how, your music is touching people, because it's getting them on a core level that they remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea. And that's who I am too. Like, it may not seem like it, especially me doing this, but I'm very silly at heart. Like, you have no idea how silly I am. And yeah, and I love drawing that out of people. And I love drawing it out of them where they don't even realize it's happening. And so they question it like, this guy is silly, you know, like, I don't know, it's fun to do.
You know, like I'm willing to be the center of my own joke. Let's just put it that way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, a laughter, a smile, especially when you can like turn that completely 360 in somebody's mood like that is just, I think, an amazing talent.
Yeah.
And have you done any, because I know you may not, you know, have done this, because I know you said you made silly songs for your friends. Have you produced or put out any silly songs? Because I think that's very important. I'm just curious.
I'm trying to think, have I put them out? Somewhat, yeah. Well, so okay, when I did the regular mainstream music, I would say, I was the one that would do all the skits. I was the one that they would get to, you know, do the intros, outros, and different skits. So I would do those, but some of those themes aren't appropriate for all ages. So I wouldn't want to mention it. But even now, like, I'm looking for ways to do like certain kind of skits and things. And even in some of my songs now, I will sneak in some stuff that people might not hear it until like the 10th listen. And then when they do, they're like, did he really just say that? And it's, yeah.
I've caught one or two of those and I'm sitting there chuckling. So I just love that, you know, because, you know, it puts that playfulness into it. You know what I mean? And I think that's like, it's like you got it all going on in one spot. And I had a, you know, I know one of your reviews says like, if Jesus was the rapper, right? And I think that is so spot on because you have that same love and playfulness. I mean, I always say, you know, like I said, he tells me to call him Yeshua, but you know, he's got humor like no. I mean, if you think how this world works, Spirit has humor. It's probably a little twisted compared to everything else. And I find like you pull that all together and make it work.
Thank
Somehow.
you. Yeah.
You're
And
welcome.
but I feel the same way. Like I feel like it's humor in so much. Like even God has that humor where you can't help but laugh. Like I understand, God. I see what you're
Yep.
showing me right now. You just got to put your hands up and just
I always call it the, you know, like I was saying earlier, the spirit slap or the spirit face bomb. Like they'll show me like, oh, remember last month, the month before, I even told them speed it up, okay? Just because I told you to slow it down doesn't mean I need kindergarten. and they'll show me, see, all this was leading to that. I'm like, oh, well, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not illiterate. Move it a little faster. I just razz with them. But yeah, a lot of times in the work I do where spirits come through or, you know, and like you were saying, some people might reject the Bashar, but, you know, I get a lot of the little people and Middle Earth people and especially fairies and gnomes and things. And I mean, they're laughing and picking at, I mean, they're going crazy. And here I am. I've learned to just laugh with them, but my clients are probably like, if you can see this, I mean, and they do it on purpose because they want that joy. They're trying, especially for, you know, people that come through that are a little more like, you know, and they start to feel that joy flow through. And I just think that's like for those type of beings, it's more like, you know, I always say everything starts in a thought form. So to me, those are that joy and playfulness side of the divinity, you know, because you know, people are like, no, I want to talk to the angels. I want to talk to my divine fractals. I don't want to hear about these fairies or these gnomes or these things. And I'm like, well, they want to play with you. I don't know what to tell you. So I just think it's funny as far as like, it doesn't matter who the messenger. If we're all sparks of the divine, everything is interconnected. There's not one, the brother and sister thing. So
I love that.
I'm always open to hear it.
Yeah, I feel like if I was a spirit or non-physical and physical people could see me, I would do anything I could to make them laugh. Like in a serious situation where they're trying to be as serious as they can be. Like, yeah.
I've had them dancing like Gumby or picking on each other and like throwing each other around. And I'm sitting here going, I'm trying to do
I love it.
And it's so funny though. But I mean, that's the humor that they have. And, you know, and one of them was like, yeah, like breakdancing almost. It was a light being. And I'm like, why are you showing me? But yeah, you know, I'm just saying, you know, if spirit can have that kind of joy and they're telepathic, you know, they're using all this energy just to show you that, you know, that's how important that that joy in music, like, they'll show me the dancing and the music and stuff like that, like how important it is. Cause they keep telling me like sound and frequency is like the new way of healing, the new way of expression, to put emotion into those frequencies. Cause that's how spirit, communicates. So I think you flow that very, very much so. And I'm sure you probably realize this, but through your music, it flows very, very much.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I don't know. It's amazing to me. 'Cause
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's hard to know for sure. Like, I mean, that's my intention. Like, I want people to feel it and just be inspired and like, yeah, I can be happy. I can do whatever. Like, I want to snap people out of that state. So yeah, but like you said, I never really know if that's what it does or not. All I can do is just believe and let it go.
And let go.
Yeah.
I tell people that about everything. Like, just that's why I think, pardon me, but it's one of my favorite songs of yours, because it is so important to let that go, to have that faith and just let it go, and who we are in even this moment, this second right now, is different than what we are 2 minutes ago because of the energy we've shared.
Yeah.
And so, it's really important to let go of that understanding and conditioning and that expectation of the person you once knew, even in yourself and others. There's so much of like, especially with spiritual experiences, you've changed so radically much, yet people are still relating to the person you used to be. And so for you, did you see that a lot? I mean, were people like, oh, what do you mean? You're not gonna do that kind of rap anymore. What do you mean? You're gonna, did you have that? Did people really pick up on the shift in you?
So it's strange because it almost felt like people were like, man, we were waiting for this. What took you so
Really?
long? And right. And it was like, what do you mean? Like, it was almost like people saw it in me before I did. And I guess the clues were always there, but when you have a lot going on in your head, you can never see things truly. So it was weird of how accepting it was, of how little resistance there was in this. I'm still amazed. Like it's because going from with the music I was making, and again, the music I was making, it wasn't bad. It was just very ego driven, like most of the standard rap music. And there was some, I don't want to say conflict there, but there was resistance there, at times, even though I knew like this is lyrically great. Like, this is a great song, but it's a lot different when you're aimed at helping people. And I guess the way I see it is we all have ideas of what we want out of life, but what we share is love and peace. So like, no matter what, like if we can meet at that level, it's always accepted because everyone wants love and peace. Like no matter who you are, you want to be able to relax and do what you want to do. And so if I find that whenever you connect with somebody there, it's always accepting. It's never any resistance.
Mm-hmm. I think so. My thing is, if you do what you love, abundance comes, and if you don't love it anymore, then it's time to.
Yeah, I've let go of music a number of times, really.
Really?
And I was surprised that it would always come back. Like it was. Yeah.
I'm that way with peopling. Like, oh, I'll be a hermit for about 5 years, then all of a sudden I'm like out there interacting, and I'm like, okay, enough. Nope,
Yeah.
I got stuck back in.
I understand.
My life goal is to be a hermit. I kind of am, but I'm out there a lot, but not physically out there a lot.
I'm the same way, and it's like when you do pop out, it's like the universe takes advantage of it. They're like, oh, they're out. Let's do this. Hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And yeah.
Yes, because you and I, because we've been in these meetings before together, that happens to me a lot. It's like, okay, I'm supposed to go out today, and they're like, okay, well, you have to go here. But then you're supposed to go here, and it always turns into this big event, like the $20 bill thing, And I'm just like, okay, thanks. I'm glad I could be of service today. and they're miraculous, beautiful things, but it's just like that. Like, okay, you're gonna really go out and touch people's lives today, so let's make it count.
The most beautiful thing of it all is that it's almost like you're doing what you would do anyway, but you have a profound effect on people and they have a profound effect on you, but you're not really doing anything different. it's mind blowing.
Right, you're just being you, but more aware of how everybody else is feeling, what's in your environment, and just picking up all those energies now that you're in the flow of consciousness.
Yeah.
So you're able to step in and say, hey, oh, this guy needs help, or oh, this lady's having a bad day today. Because I remember as a kid, I used to say the same thing to my mom, and then my children are the same way, like, do you know that lady? Why is she telling you? Because here I am a half hour talking to somebody I don't know, because they needed someone that day.
Yeah.
And it's funny how we don't realize, like, we're the little angels in everybody else's story.
Yeah.
At least I prefer to be the angel rather than causing them any distress. So
Yeah, and like you said, sometimes like the listen more, talk less. Sometimes people just need someone to talk to for the moment. Like you say nothing at all, and you can just see in them the joy that just comes out of nowhere.
yeah, just because somebody took that moment to make them feel seen, I think is important.
Yeah.
Right. I feel that, through all of these avenues, like me, I do my writings and my podcast, and you do your podcast and your music and your foundation. And I just feel that you should follow wherever spirit moves you. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be where I mean, not realistically, having to, tell these near-death experiences that sound like so far out and everything else. But I find the more people that speak their truth and it changes that it has brought them, that others are more open to share what they are. There's so many people that come to me privately, like, I had this, I had that, I had this, I could never talk about it. So I haven't met a person yet who hasn't had some form of spiritually transformative experience.
Perfect example. When I was doing some of this, my mom told me something about how she used to see spirits or something. I'm like, my mom, why would you never tell me this? Like, I feel like I would need to know that, but maybe I was fearful back then, so I can understand why. But like you said, everyone has had spiritual experience. Like no one is exempt from that. And that just shows, but yet everyone doesn't talk about it.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, Spiritual Awakenings International has a list of what spiritual transformative experiences, and it's not even, I think, it's ever expanding. But, until people see it or read it, they don't always see their experiences for the miracles that they are, or that they were so transformative. So I think it's so important, to speak that. And I'm just so thankful for you and for the work you do in helping people be more aware and expand their experience. Before we wrap it up, I just was wondering, like, what is the one takeaway that you would like people to get from your experiences or your music, or just that you would like to share with them for their own being?
Yeah, the one takeaway just in general is that you are how you are because you're supposed to be that way. And it shouldn't be that tough of a pill to swallow, but it can be. It was for me. Like you see the world how you see the world, and you see how others see it or how you believe they see it. And you're like, well, but I see it differently. That's good. That's perfect. Like we don't need another them. That's why you're here. Yeah, like you're here to be you, that unique way. Like there's so many people I watch, even on social media, that I might not agree with half of what they say, but they're just being them, that it just brings you in. It's like, man, they're being, that's them. Even though like their experiences are different, I wouldn't dare do what they're doing. They wouldn't dare do what I'm doing, but there's an appreciation there because you can see that authenticity that you were speaking of. Like you can just see it. And for everyone to know that they have that, like, it's okay to be you. It's okay to have a different opinion. If you have it, to have a different viewpoint. That's the main message I try to convey through the music, through everything. Just be you. It's cool. You're enough. You're perfect.
That's a beautiful message. I think the most important in healing the world, you're an individual thought form for a reason.
Yeah.
Embrace it authentically. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
as
you
well.
for being thank you for being here today and sharing your story with all of us. And I am so thankful. And everyone, thank you for joining us and watching this with us, and have a very, very blessed day. Thank you so much.